I am here with Malik Bosley, first place winner of ARG Vegas with his deck Tree. So Malik, first tell us off what you think about the event.
The event was fine. I just wish there had been more people because the game needs a bigger turnout. And, well, it was fun. I at least got to play against a player who went to Worlds and actually was at Masters. And I went to Masters last year as well, so it was like, oh, I got to see this guy again, but it was not bad.
Okay.
At least I played, like I know a competitive, world top 8 player. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get on with the deck, and then I'll ask you questions as we go along. All right?
Sure. So this... Oh,
go ahead.
Sorry. So this is Malefic World Tree, Yggdrasil. This ruler replaces the usual standard of life totals with its deck size. So, like the usual game, you get 4,000 life, both the players do. But instead of deducting life whenever you would take damage, you instead remove cards from the top of your deck in increments of 100 for each damage that will be dealt to you. So, by this allows your life total, your actual life total, to be your main deck, and then the numerical life total will actually just be a resource for you. And we'll show you later on in the video as to exactly how that works. And also, this ruler has Energize for green, which is just, it's not as powerful as it seems, but it's really good right now due to the Otherworld Dreams and then True Blade of Spirit Blade or whatever. And then also, its best ability, however, is the bottom of it. So by paying a black and a green and resting this ruler, you are able to summon a Rezard, Arla, Machina, or I believe Melgus Resonator from your remove pile and put it into play. And which are basically your boss cards / utility monsters. And we'll show you those as we go through the deck list.
That sounds really strong. All right, why did you choose this ruler?
I chose this ruler because the field, at least I presumed, and I was correctly, would primarily be Fairer, which is an aggressive, either aggro or mid-range based deck, and having a higher life total than usual by 2,000 points is very effective, and being able to utilize board wipes very easily without dying through them, which is a final battle, just makes it very effective in this current format.
Yep. So, well, you did very well on your choice. Let's get on with the deck then.
All right. So we're going to start off.
There we go.
So we're going to start off with the bread and butter of the deck.
Okay.
Rezard. So Rezard, King of the Damned, is a 2-cost, 2-black Resonator that's 500 attack and defense, and it says pay 200 life, remove target card in a graveyard from the game. And then this card gains +100/+100 for each remove Resonator in your remove area. So its first effect is the pay 200, both utility for yourself and removing important cards from your opponent's graveyard in case they have Remnant or an opponent's card requires the use of their graveyard. This card immediately just stops that.
Yep.
And it's in the late game after your opponent has to hit you, or if you cause damage to yourself, this just becomes a boss monster that they can't stop with, and because Malefic World Tree brings it out for 2 at any time, it just becomes a really strong creature that ends the game very easily.
Okay. Pretty strong. Okay, move on.
And then the second key Resonator is Arla, Demonic Flying Ace. This Resonator says, pay 200 life, this card deals 200 damage to target Resonator, attacking or blocking Resonator. Now, this card is far less useful than Rezard, however, it has clutch situations in case a Fairer, which is the most popular deck at the moment, has Flying Cloud, which allows them to have flying. This gives you a blocker. This kills off weenies that are trying to chip in damage. This allows you to kill Tia, that is in Farrah's deck. It allows you to kill the commander in the blue-white build, and it's just all around a solid Resonator, though not as important as Rezard. It is still necessary for the deck to function.
All right.
And also, one thing I forgot to mention is that both of these Resonators have the Will of Despair tag, which is an archetype on its own, and there's another card in this deck that synergizes with that name tag.
Okay, so we'll get onto that when we get to it. So
we'll get onto it right now, actually. So, this is Husbando number 1, Gil Lapis, the Usurper of Madness.
Good thing we know you're wrong.
I love this card. I love this character. So basically what Gil Lapis does is that it has Precision, Will of Despair, and every time, for each other Will of Despair Resonator in your board, it gains +100 attack and defense, which means it synergizes with both Arla itself and Rezard. which it helps a little. And the precision is very useful, especially when you want a final battle and then not use all of your resources in terms of life payment, and allows you to kill off Farah without utilizing everything. So you have effects for Rezard and Arla later on. And what he does is that when he enters the field, he searches for a 1-cost darkness or light chant spell, which in this deck is only the darkness ones. And the card you usually go for is Final Battle, which we'll show later. And the second effect is effects of cards that will cause you to lose life that you control do not cause you to lose life. And there's a card called Heteroclite Excalibur they're going to get to that just synergizes very well. It was created for that very purpose. So basically, you would take no damage from using Heteroclite Excalibur. However, important for new players, this effect does not negate the payment cost of Final Battle, which is important to note because at first, when the card first came out, I thought that's what it did. A few people thought that was what it did, until we realized that we were pretty dumb for thinking that, because that would just make this card ridiculous.
Okay. So, really strong card, I guess?
Solid for the deck. Easy recruitment of Final Battle. And our next Resonator that I want to showcase is my favorite card of all time, Abdul Al-Hazred, the Poet of Madness. 6/6, 600 realistically. 1 black, 2 blacks for the cost, and its effect is Resonators that your opponent controls do not trigger their automatic enter abilities when they hit the field. This card originally a format ago with the Tree Prisia Prisia Fox format. This card was considered, there's a division among the community whether this card was the best card in the format or whether it was actually the weakest card in the format. So while it was able to stop the tyrannical strength of Fox, it was also weak to Fox's removal, and so Aaron Miles, who is a world champion of Force of Will, who won the Masters event, basically ran a Fox list that took this card out. And the reasoning behind it was that everyone had been equipped to deal with Abdul in such a way, and also Abdul was very slow in playing Fox, and Fox had too many answers and outs to Abdul, such as Heteroclite Excalibur, Shade, the Envoy of Darkness, and it would just basically be killed. However, this card continued to lose traction to this very day. But with the resurgence of enter abilities with decks like Farah, for important cards such as Mariabella and Tia, this card becomes very strong. It's also very good in the tree mirror when you stop Gil Lapis from searching cards. You stop Grim from destroying Neo Barrier. I think this card is actually very solid right now. Oh, also, a nice little mention, Lumia Control. This deck suffered really badly from Lumia Control until I put this card in. It was a very difficult matchup, and then this card alone just wins that entire matchup.
Alright, so I guess that's really strong tech, and that was nice.
Next card is Dark Red Riding Hood, or Dark Riding Hood. So it's a 3-cost Resonator that's 700 attack and 800 defense, all 3 black for cost. And this card gains, whenever this card deals damage to a Resonator, destroy that target Resonator if your life is 2,000 or less. So this card is extremely strong in Tree because your life is not what it seems it to be. So when you pay life for the effects of Arla, Rezard, or Final Battle, or anything like that, this increases the likelihood of its condition being fulfilled. And when this condition is fulfilled, this card gains swiftness if your life is 1,000 or less. And then when it deals damage to, when this card enters the field, when this card attacks, deal 2 damage to a creature or player, and by targeting any creature such as Maribella, Tia, just basically anything, Commander, it immediately kills it. So it's immediate death touch without having to do combat damage. It's an effect damage. It's really, really good tech, and we actually have a card in here that searches this out.
Alright. There's also another effect about mystery counters, but your ruler doesn't.
Yeah,
right?
The ruler doesn't utilize mystery counters whatsoever. The mystery counter ruler is Rhea, the starter deck ruler / just one of the new rulers with the new mechanics. This card might, depending on what's released and what her final keyword ability that is restricted right now says, this card could possibly see even more play, or it would just be absolutely useless once Shrew rotates out. Okay. It really just depends. My next card. So I showed you Dark Riding Hood, and let me show you the card that recruits her. This is Grim, the Rightful King. And he's a Will of Hope card, and this is another archetype like Will of Despair, but there's no other synergies besides that in this deck. And when he enters the field, he destroys a target addition, and then you search your deck for a Fairy Tale Resonator. She is a Fairy Tale Resonator. So it's a nice little synergy buff, and he allows you to get through Neo Barrier Shadows, he allows you to get through Shackles of Ice, he kills off Sacred Wind Refuge or something like that, I think that's the name. Just a good utility card that you can bring out very easily.
Okay.
Next is Valentina the Twilight Passion. So she's a 4-cost card, 1 darkness, 1 red, 2 colorless, 900 attack, 900 defense. When I was first constructing this deck, the original build had Valentina, and then I went back on it thinking that it was a very useless in terms of the actual format because of Otherworld Dreams. Making a 4-cost creature play just seems so taxing for even a control deck that usually has a lot of mana. It still seems like a really risky play. But then I thought about it harder. And this card, when in conjunction with Rezard at 1, is not awful. With Rezard, you can remove cards from your opponent's graveyard, and her effects correspond with her opponent's graveyard. So when she enters the field, she targets a Resonator that's 2 costs or less and removes it from play. Then she has 3 other effects. She has, that's one of them. And then she has a 0-cost effect that says put a target card from your opponent's remove area onto the bottom of the deck. She gains precision. Or put a target card from your opponent's remove pile to the bottom of the deck. She gains swiftness. Then the third effect is that you return 3 cards from your opponent's remove pile, and she gains 500 attack. So in coupling with these 2 cards together, you could easily OTK any control list that you're going against. A Tree Mirror, this is really, really strong. This just basically finishes your opponent off and they can't do anything, because their damage outpaces the amount they can get.
She also has another effect that when she deals damage to a Resonator and kills it, it removes it from the game.
Any damage she does when Resonator, she removes it from the game. Which is important because you can give her precision, attack something, and then it'll be removed, which just fuels her for next turn. Mm-hmm. And also gets rid of any graveyard corresponding effects.
Okay. And that was all the Resonators, correct?
I believe there's actually one more. This is Ultimate Swordsman Faria. Now, if I were to honestly consider it, I'd probably take this card outside of the deck, because whenever I attempted to play it during the tournament, it was either useless or it was just I was already in a winning position. And with the way that Fairer decks have adapted now to the blue-white build, they have a bunch of weenies, so this effect to prevent your first damage is far less powerful than it once was against the red-green aggro versions, which just have to hit face with large creatures. So honestly, I'm very much considering taking this out. As a nice body, I guess. If you wipe your opponent's board and then set this down, it's pretty good, but that would never happen, basically, because Severing Winds exist, because Otherworld Dreams exist. Probably taking this card out.
Okay. So when you remake the deck next time, that card is the first to go.
Probably the very first thing to go.
Okay.
Now on to the Chance. This is one of the strongest cards. I believe this card has always seen play ever since it was released. This is Kaguya's Moonbeam Butterfly. Sorry. So, you pay 2 green and X, and you search your deck for a Resonator or an addition with that paid cost plus 1. So, just playing this at where for 0, basically just red and just green and white, will get you a 1-cost card or less. 2 or more will get you 3 2 costs, 4 3 costs, 5 4 costs, etc., etc. Very useful for getting out Gil Lapis when you need to get Final Battle immediately, or if you want to take out your opponent's hand with other discard effects. Searching for additions like Neo Barrier or Alice's World of Madness. It's just very good utility card. Quite honestly, it's kind of weak in this format just because of Otherworld Dreams, but if you know how to play the game correctly in a control deck, and once you become skilled enough, this card is just useful. You don't care about the drawbacks.
Okay. Alright.
One of my favorite cards. So, this is Release. It says, put a non-magic stone card from your remove play into your hand, and then you draw a card. So in this deck, when you take damage through Yggdrasil, you mill the top cards of your deck. And also, Rezard allows you to remove cards from your graveyard. So doing this can let you get essentially any card that you need for a future situation, for the current situation. Lets you grab Final Battle immediately, lets you get Otherworld or Severing for a counter war. It lets you just get a Resonator that you need, like Valentina or Rezard, immediately to play if you had to tap for stone, obviously. It's just good. It's a value card. It's literally a +1, and you cycle through your deck very easily.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is one of the major cards in the deck.
It is one of the...
If you wanted to,
yes.
You'd have this in the opening hand every single game?
If I opened one Release, I would probably keep it. If I opened two, obviously I think I would mull one. But yes, I don't mind seeing this in the opening. It's just a strong card, gets your options up. No complaints from me.
Okay.
And now the true bread and butter of this deck, the Final Battle. It's a 1-cost black chant, which means Gil searches for it when he comes into play. And this card says you may pay 200 life rather than pay 1 mana of this card's effect.
For X.
Yes, for X. And the effect is J/Resonators your opponent controls gain -X until end of turn. This is the main reason why Tree is playable at all, because you can just wipe Pharaoh's board and not lose the game off of it. The only thing I would have to say is that the calculations sometimes aren't as obvious as they seem. Sometimes you don't want to fully wipe your opponent's board. Sometimes you do. But just a little key reminder for anyone that wants to build this deck and in this current format is that this card +3 equals I kill Pharaoh with counters. So basically, because going down to 200 life, paying 3,800 life, and then paying 3 mana is dealing -22 to your opponent's board, and Pharaoh generally cannot surpass that, even with his counters.
Okay.
And this is basically the main staple of the deck. That's what allows the deck to even top or even be good right now.
Pretty bold claims, but alright.
My favorite card, even though a lot of people hate it, Severing Winds. This card has been in every main deck since it was released. It has. Am I right about that? Yeah, I think I am. Yeah, every single main deck since it's been released. This card is insane. So normally it's a 4-cost, quick cast, cancel target spell. However, if your opponent has played another card this turn, you can play this card for 0. This card is just like the bane of everyone's existence. The counter wars in this game are ridiculous because of this card's creation. Force of Will, what are you doing? Stop making green the best color in the game.
What do you mean? It's Force of Wind.
Yeah, I have no other comments. This card is obscene, though not as obscene, honestly, as the next card.
Okay. So, good. Severing Wings,
Absolutely
basically
necessary to play
in every deck.
In every deck.
Okay.
That is not... That any deck that has green, you must play this card. And even decks without green, you might want to consider playing the card.
Alright.
And this is the card that shattered the format. Otherworld Dreams. It's a quick cast, 1 mana chant that says cancel target spell your opponent controls. Then your opponent may play a card with total cost equal to or less than the card that was canceled through this card. Now, let's first off talk about, even before the whole put into play another card, a 1 mana cancel spell is ridiculous. There's no restriction as to what it cancels. It is just anything that you don't like to see that is a cast, or rather a play, you just cancel it.
Okay.
Now, what makes it even more obscene is Severing Winds. The reason why is that these two cards together ensure that your opponent might go into at least if you cancel an important card, they will likely an important large card or maybe just even important small card even. They will likely play it again if they want to keep up tempo or get value out of the card you played to counteract basically your cancel. That was the intention of this card, I believe, at least from Force of Wilco, is that because despite you giving up a card, your opponent gets a chance to play a card of equal value. With this together, that's a no, because this card immediately can cancel anything afterwards. You can cancel the card that this card allows your opponent to bring out another card. Right. And that's why this is why control is playable. It is also why aggro is really good. It's just this card that shouldn't have been printed.
So also funny interaction with Otherworld Dreams. If you pay a bunch of life, it does consider the X.
Yes.
And if Otherworld of Dreams cancels it, you can bring out a big beat stick. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, actually. It's not just when you pay life as well. It's when through any card that has X, such as Kaguya's Moonbeam. My opponent canceled a Kaguya's Moonbeam for 4. I'm sorry, for 3. 2 plus 3. So to bring out 2 plus 2. So to bring out a 3 cost, which the total cost of the card was 4, he canceled it, and then I dropped, where is it? The stupid card. Oh yeah, I dropped Valentina, and he had no response for it, removed his Melfi, and then I went and put his Melfi back into the bottom of his deck and killed his other Melfi. He could no longer kill me.
So even though this card, the Otherworld Dreams, is extremely strong, it can backfire really badly.
It can backfire if you're not careful. And with control decks, if you're new to the game, I suggest playing through this using control decks. If you're interested in playing this deck or any control deck, I suggest getting a lot of practice because you have to know the right sequences as to play this card, when to take risks or not, in order to not get punished.
Okay. So, again, one of the meta-defining cards.
Yes, absolutely. Should not have been printed. Here, I'll leave that. Now, this is a card that has been in the game since Alice Cluster. It's the Scorn of Dark Alice. You look into your opponent's hand, and you take a Resonator card from it, and you discard it. Discarding the Resonator card part, very good in this format. Resonator heavy decks. But what's even more important is the information you're gaining from looking at your opponent's hand. It allows you to make plays. It allows you to set up ways, play around different things. It's just, information is key.
Okay.
Next card, Blood Spray. This card reads, draw 2 cards, and then this card deals 3 damage to you. So what this really reads in this deck is that you draw 2 cards and then you mill 3 cards. Meaning you'll hit Arla, you'll hit Rezard, you'll be able to set cards up for release. It's very good. It's very slow. I ended up usually siding it out actually against Pharaoh decks. Against Pharaoh decks. I always ended up signing it out against Pharaoh decks just because I didn't really want to play a chance spell for 2 mana during their early, the only time I really found myself being even capable to play this is during the early game where I would draw 2 cards and then mill myself for 3. So that's essentially taking 5 damage in this deck. And against Pharaoh, where they build up a big board and possibly just swing at you at once, it's very dangerous to actually mill those 3 extra cards. I literally won the game-winning match for the championship with having 3 cards left in my deck. So if I had played this card in that match at all, it would have been over. It's very good against lower decks, I'll give it that. But yeah, anything that's heavy aggro, cite this card out. But otherwise, very synergistic, very good. Once this format slows down, and if this is still here, this will be just probably a 4 of, actually.
Okay. So just 3 of as of now because you're expecting the aggro, right?
Yes, I was expecting more aggro, and while it can be played, it's just most situations you don't. And this is another example of a Mystery Awakening card. So it says remove a mystery counter from your J/ruler, destroy target resonator with total cost 2 or less, which is also very cool. Hopefully Rhea is good, like I said before, so maybe this card will see more play in a different style of deck.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is True Blade of Spirits. Anti-aggro card that reads, quick cast Remnant. Remnant in this game essentially means you can, if this card is in your graveyard, you may cast it again, and when you do, you remove it from play. And this card deals 500 damage to target resonator, total cost 2 or less. This card alone secures games if you have it turn 1 against any Pharaoh list. So most of the Pharaoh plays are either Spirit Caller Elf into, and then untap into a Sacred Elf, which is Sacred Elf is your primary target. But even if they don't do that, and they just summon the 2/1 drops, this stops them, the Pharaoh deck, from being able to tap for extra mana and J-activate early by killing one of them off. Well, technically, you have the potential to kill both off, but most of the time I saved it. So yeah, this staple, every green deck should be running this if you're expecting aggressive decks to show up. It's just a good card.
Okay.
It also synergizes well with Release. You can add it back. It lets you... Yeah, it synergizes because as Remnant, Release lets you get it back. Though you usually don't want to get it back, it's just a target in case you're desperate, possibly. This gives you more options.
So it's basically you cast a 4 with Release.
Yes.
All right, that's pretty good.
Then we have the Nameless Mist. So I'm always a fan of discard strategies, but in this format, this card is required. Simply because Otherworld Dream, Severing Winds, Millennium Bond, I believe it's Command of Light and Wind. They're all powerful staples, not staples, powerful cards seeing, some of them are staples, I guess. They're seeing play throughout the entirety of the format. It's not as necessary as Scorn. It's not a 4 of because, again, counter wars are a thing. This lets you secure counter wars, though, which counter wars are less important than dealing with your opponent's resonators right now. So that's why it's only at 3. Still a necessary card for the deck. Very good. Information is key again. You get to look at your opponent's hand. Sometimes actually just play this card knowing what my opponent's hand already was, because it also, upon resolution, gives a resonator on your side to fill plus 100. So yeah, even in my top 4 match, I knew what my opponent's hand was. There's just 2 resonators in it. Still play this anyway, just to push in for more damage.
Yeah.
A lot of options. Then we're on to Amaterasu's Foresight. This card I bumped up to 3 because I expected Ayu more than Farer, though it is not completely terrible against Farer as well. The card reads 1 yellow, 1 white for a quick cast. Prevent all damage that would be dealt by J/Resonators this turn.
Okay.
Which is essentially just, if you played Magic the Gathering, it's a fog. If you played Yu-Gi-Oh, it is a...
Threatening Roar?
Threatening Roar.
Or Wabaku.
Or Wabaku. Oh yeah, Wabaku would be the correct one. It'd be more like Wabaku. Necessary again for Ayu. It's okay against Farer. Against Farer, I generally don't keep this actually in my opening hand. But with the combination of other cards, it could be good in your opening hand. But most of the time, you really have to get a feel for the deck and get some experience in playing control decks. Then you'll understand when or when not to mulligan cards like this.
Okay.
Then we have Endless Night. This card was actually quite strong in this the tournament I went to. Here. So it reads, for 2 black and 1 colorless, destroy target resonator your opponent controls. That then all resonators gain -2/-2 until end of turn, which does include yours. For the token Pharaoh list, that utilizes Commander of the Commander Elf, and then also the Command of Light and Wind. This causes your opponent to basically lose a turn. If you are able to successfully resolve this on their board at the beginning of their turn, they can no longer really play any card that generates they can't play Tama, they can't play Commander, well they can play Commander, but it will no longer have tokens. They can't play Spirit Caller Elf. It basically just makes it so you stall for an extra turn, you put your opponent back, and you kill a Resonator if this resolves. Necessary. I believe this is necessary too. It's perfect at 2. I don't need to go to 3. It would be really clunky at 3. Even in a 60 card deck like this, I just like it at 2.
Okay.
This is Heteroclite Excalibur. So this is a card I mentioned earlier that corresponds with Gil Lapis. So he searches this card out. He's literally designed for this card, and it reads: 1 black, chant, resonate, remove target resonator from the game, you lose 500 life points. So, very strong effect. Just removing any resonator from the game at 1 is insane in card games. If they add this in Hearthstone, it would be disgusting. So yeah, Gil searches it out, and the cool part is that with Gil on the board, if you play this card, you negate essentially the lose 500 life. Yes, you lose 500 life points. Now, initially there were 2 copies of this card in the build, but then I considered the fact that this card is actually very dead against everything except for the red fairy list, and even then it's not very good because the only card you really want to target with this is Mariabella. And if Mariabella usually resolves, they get a little counter on her that says you can make your opponent pay 1 more in order to play spells, so this becomes a 2 mana, and at that point, as a chant, it's not too good because if anything, you would have options for stuff like Death at Midnight, what is it called? A Call of Cthulhu or something like that. But yeah, I actually found this card very underwhelming in the tournament. I never found myself in a time where I actually wanted to play this and remove a card and lose 500 life on its own, or over Final Battle, because Final Battle just basically lets you win the game on its own.
Okay.
But it's not bad at 1. It's a good tech. If you do resolve these 2, just very good. Oh, and another note. Gil also searches Scorn of Dark Alice and Nameless Mist, making him even better because he allows you to instantly get any card, especially if you know your opponent's hand already and have written down what cards they have, and you know there's a big resonator, you can go into him, steal it out. You can go into Nameless, take out a Severing, take out an Otherworld. It's just pretty strong.
And it also, again, can search Final Battle.
Yes, of course.
So the only 4 cards I believe it searches are Scorn, Nameless, Hedocrate, and
Final Battle.
The Final Battle.
The Final Battle is... Let me get you a nice little bit.
Nice little picture for the thumbnail.
Yes. Alright. These are the 4, and this is the most important out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Second best, this, and then this is the least.
Alright. Also, one more thing.
Yes.
You do actually lose the life in Hedocrate. It does not mill you 5 because loss of life is not damage.
Yes.
And Yggdrasil only prevents damage.
Yes.
I need to stay back guys.
And then, last card in the main, Neo Barrier of Shadows. So, this is my only addition in the main deck. Good against any ramp sort of deck because Melfi and Sacred Elf lose the ability to produce will. So this card says your opponent pays 1 more to play activated abilities of resonators they control, which means any mana dork has to pay 2 mana in order to produce mana, which makes it, unless you're just trying to get a specific color, far less powerful. It's basically just playing a blank card. But where this card's really shining in is its second part, where it says Seal 8. The text of the card gains your opponent cannot activate any non-will abilities. So, at 8 stones, this stops opposing tree players from being able to summon Rezard, Melgus, Arla, or Machina. It stops Farer from being able to use any of his counters, though chances are a good Farer player would have already used those abilities in order to kill you. It's very good against, there's one more deck, IU, if you can get to this point. If you get to that point, you generally win against IU because they can no longer God Art, they can no longer pitch in order to kill you. Yeah, it's just a one of, and it's attack, it's all I needed. I only really needed to resolve it once.
And that was the last card of the deck, right?
That was the last card of the main deck.
So 60-card main deck again. And as you saw, there was no life gain. That's because Yggdrasil prevents life gain from both players.
Yes, that's one part I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
So, do you guys want to go on to the Magic Stone
Yeah, let's
list?
go to the Magic Stone.
So the Magic Stone list begins with 4 Magic Stone of Black Silence, 4 Magic Stone of Hearth's Core, and then 1 Magic Stone of Scorch Bales, and 1 Gusting Darkness Magic Stone. If I were to consider any changes, it would probably be that there are none. This is the perfect mishmash of the colors I need in the deck. The only one I don't really want to see turn 1 is this one, and even then it's not bad, because I'm usually scorning someone turn 1, or I'm nameless misting turn 1, and it's solid stone lineup. No changes necessary.
Okay, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
So this list looks a lot like the Italy list or the Spain list.
It's nearly identical except for a few 3 cards I changed, and the only card I really changed out of the main was adding the 3rd Amaterasu. Taking the Italy list had 2 Heteroclad Excalibur in the main. I found it underwhelming at 2. And that's it for the main. That's the differences. So literally 2 cards difference in the main. Oh, also I believe that's just it. However, the side also has 2 cards, I believe. We have a 1 card difference in the side.
Okay, so let's just go over what you'd put them in for matchups.
Okay.
And what cards?
So Digestion is a quick cast, 2-cast Trent that says destroy target wind resonator. I put this in against every single fair matchup. Red green, blue white build, doesn't matter. This kills any wind resonator. It kills Tia, kills Mariabella. That's just a very good card. It's a very good side option in this meta.
So you put this against Fair because you saw Fair a lot. Would you put this against any other deck that you'd see?
I would put it in against.
What about Lumia Control?
No, I wouldn't put it in against Lumia Control. Yeah, I literally just Fair.
Okay.
This card, I wish I could really find room for the main, because I sided in every single matchup.
Okay.
Every single one.
Okay.
It just helps with the cancel wars. It cancels target quick cast spell. It's a 1-drop green. Again, Force of Will, stop making this color ridiculous. Also, this card cancels Melfi. So this is a 1-mana answer to a 2-cost card that ramps your opponent up, and possibly causes you to lose placing in damage. This card, if I could find a way to get in the main, I would play it at 4.
Okay, I'm good.
Next up, 2 more Grim. Just additional resonator. Not resonator. Addition destruction. I expected people to side in Shackles of Ice. It's good against Flying Cloud. Very good in the tree matchup when Neo Barrier comes out. Unfortunately, during the tournament, no one played any of those cards against me. They sided them in, but they didn't draw them. So there were quite a few times where I had a dead Grim in hand. Though I honestly would never make any other choice. I would still side them in no matter what.
Okay.
A 4th Amaterasu's Foresight, just to shore up any IU matchups, any aggressive matchups that I might need this in. It's just, able to make sure I'll survive the game. A 2nd Neo Barrier Shadows, in case I win against another tree matchup. It's literally just it.
Okay.
2nd Valentina for another tree matchup. Any slow deck I notice, just throw her in. Just another way to kill your opponent really quickly.
Okay.
The 1 card difference in this side than the Italy list is Alice's World of Madness. So, the reason why it's only at 1, and it seems most people would consider it awful at 1, is that I also have Endless Night in the main deck for any of the little token builds of Farer. And I only needed 1 of these in the side because of Kaguya's Moonbeam that can recruit it. Release can add it back if it gets removed. And then also just Endless Night. But this card is the only thing in the side that I would consider bumping. Maybe at max 2. One really cool thing that I noticed is that all my opponents expected me to side this card in at like 3 or 4, which I didn't think was necessary because of Endless Night's just presence in my main deck. So a lot of the times, me siding in just one caused my opponents to have dead cards such as Destruction of Portal in their hand, a Grim without a target, and oftentimes they would just clog up their hands, and this would only be necessary against the token builds. But then I believe Etten, who is my opponent for the final round and who got second place, realized what I was doing and sided out his portals and addition destruction, which ended up making him lose the game because I just slammed this down, and I read basically that he's going to do that. I slammed this down. If he did it, I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty sure he did it. Slam this down, you win the game against them. Especially after that, them citing 3 cards to get rid of your 1 card is just terrible for an aggressive or mid-range deck to do, and it's just a really cool way to win.
Okay.
Did I read the effect actually? Just in case. It's Resonators gain -2/-2 to the entire board.
Really simple effect, really effective.
Yes. And my most controversial and my favorite side deck card, Mikage, or rather, Ally of the Black Moon, who activates into Mikage Seijiro, the Eternal Vampire. This card is a 1-card win against the tree matchup. Your opponents sit there. So what happens is that Mikage is a 3-cost J-Ruler, 2 black, 1 colorless to J-activate, energize for black, and he can pay a black to deal 100 damage to a target Resonator, and when he does, he gains a blood counter. Now, basically in the tree matchup, you can constantly just ping their Resonators if they summon them, gain the blood counters, and then J-activate. Now, what his J-activate does is that he's a 900/900 imperishable flying J-Ruler, and he can remove a blood counter to choose 1 of 3 effects. To either give a target J/Resonator -1/-1 until end of turn, for you to gain, I believe,
+2.
yes.
0.
Oh, okay. 4 effects. I'm sorry. The weakest of all being able to remove a counter to give a Vampire Resonator +1/+1. For you to remove a counter and gain 200 life, or remove a counter and give him 200 more attack. So basically, you would constantly ping Resonators and kill them, gain a massive amount of blood counters, and then J-activate. Your opponent can final battle you, that's fine, you have imperishable, you flip back over, and you constantly threaten lethal, because once you hit and remove all your counters, you can amass an amount of counters to just wipe out your opponent in 1 hit. And that was the entire point. That, and if you win game 1 as tree against tree, you can side into this and just win in time.
Well, so you were right. 3 effects with if you're using this only against tree, because again you cannot gain life.
Right.
So
Yes. And that's it for the deck profile.
all right. So how was your first round all the way through the championships? What did you play against?
So my first round, I played against IU. Game 1, I was severely beaten. Game 2, my opponent went and played, I believe, Door of Time? And at first I thought I had lost the game, and then he Door of Times into Perseus Leap for 3 attacks. And then I realized that he loses the game because I can't lose the game by milling out and going to 0. I have to literally attempt to draw at 0. So I won game 2 that way. Game 3, I don't know how I ended up winning that one. I was able to resolve Neo Barrier and get to 8, and then just make his Misty Dragon be unable to bounce out of it, unable to pump itself, and then also IU just can't do anything. So I constantly and then he had to push for damage. So he has to swing at me for 1,000, let me mill, and then I just play Rezard or Arla and just constantly swing at him until he died. I wiped his board with Final Battle. Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that IU player was very handsome and good looking. It was me, by the way. So, yeah, game 3 was really rough for me. It was my bad. All right, so game 2 and Ruan, how did it go?
Oh, for round 2?
Yeah.
Round 2, I believe, was against Etten, the person who made second place. So round 2 in Swiss, I honestly didn't have much experience playing Tree against the blue-green until that point, the blue-green Pharaoh. And so game 1, I lost due to a misplay and not understanding exactly what his build was trying to do. Game 2, I won very handedly. And then game 3, we took too much time and ended up going into time before game 3 started. and so we just had to draw, basically.
Okay.
We couldn't finish the game. Round 3 was against another Farrer deck, and it was, I believe, a Farrer red-green, which is this deck's best matchup. Yes, it was a red-green mid-range Farrer. So that matchup is just very easy. When they attempt to summon Mariabella, you otherworld them. You just basically control the board. You wipe Farrer out. They have very little responses. They dedicate less cards to cancels, unlike the blue-green build, which has Millennia Bond, Farrer Spell in the main. Yeah, that matchup you just eat up very easily. Okay. Round 3 was another red-green Farrer, and it ended the same way, with me just 2-0ing my opponent.
Okay.
Was that? That was round 3, right? So
it was 5 rounds.
So it was 5 rounds? Round 4, yeah. Round 4 was against... Yeah, round 4 was against a Mosasaurus Lumia control deck. I slam Abdul and I won. That's literally what happened, and nothing else was required. I slammed Abdul, wiped his board, and every time he attempted to hit me, I would just win, because I would have Rezard.
Okay. And then round 5?
Round 5 was another red-green Farrer, I believe. Was it red-green or red-blue? Yes, it was another red-green Farrer. Ate that matchup. It was easy. Not to say that the player was a bad player. He's actually a really good player. The deck was a counter to his deck, and he couldn't do anything.
Okay. And the final 2 games...
For top 4 was a blue-green Farrer. And game 1, I won because I had finally, after playing through against Etten, I learned how the deck worked, and I just destroyed him game 1. I forced him into flipping, which I just final battled, and then held counters for his counters, and just won that way. Game 2 was way tougher. He went first, and he supplied a strong board. My hand wasn't very good, and I was unable to wipe his board appropriately in the same time while looking out for his counters, and he beat me. Game 3 went into my favor. I slammed Abdul. He didn't draw a Tama. He didn't create a new elf. He couldn't do anything. I forced him into a final battle position that wiped out his entire board. It was over. Game 3 was unfortunately very easy. And then for finals, because I had played enough times against the green-blue Farrer list, I understood actually how the deck worked. I understood exactly what to do, and that's why I was able to... I allowed Etten to hit me several times. Sometimes he would spend the counters to deal more damage, and then I would Amaterasu, which basically nullified his entire turn and made Final Battle way easier during Game 1. And then Game 2 was a really clutch match, because Game 1 I won, obviously. And then Game 2 was a really close match where I allowed him to push in more damage than normal. And I went down to, I believe, 5 cards, and there was a point where I had to top deck, and I top decked Farrer Spell, which ended up me winning the game, because later on, when we were getting down to it, when I had 2 Rezards on board, he played Helsing, the 4-cost from Vingolf, which reads, remove target Darkness Resonator and prevent all damage this card would be dealt to by Darkness Resonators, to which I otherworlded. He had his otherworld, and then I just Farrer Spell, and he had no other counters, but I also had 2 Severings. And I actually had a Severing and 2 Kage's Moonbeam in hand. And so then afterwards, actually no, that's not correct. It was Otherworld. I played my Otherworld into his Helsing. He played his Otherworld into my Otherworld, and then I played Severing onto his Helsing. So I didn't give him a chance to play a 4-cost card off of Otherworld by canceling it. Or no, is that either way? I won basically off because I canceled that cancel war, and then I just pushed in damage with 2 Rezards, and I had Alice's World of Madness on board. He couldn't generate tokens, and he revealed to me after the game was over that the only card he had in his hand was he had 2 copies of it. It was the Spirit Color Elf, which means it would just immediately die as soon as it hit board.
Okay. So playing off the top of your deck, and I believe you went down to 1 card that game.
I went down to 3 by the end of the game.
Okay.
I went down to 3, and I just had 2 Rezards and an Arla on board, and I was just like, you can't do anything.
Okay. So that was a really good tournament. Hopefully more people come by to ARGs and GPs. But yeah, this was Malik Bosley with...
Also, if you live in California, come down to Core TCG every Sunday. We have Force of Will tournaments. We used to, at the beginning when the game was first launched, get like 30 people in every time we had a tournament. Obviously, the game has gotten a little dead out here, especially with the inception of Dragon Ball card game. Yu-Gi-Oh has become better, and it was really Reflector Frame that caused people to lose hope for the game. Even though it was really Reflector Frame was a rule that was really good for competitive players because it's highly skill intensive, but was very awful for casual players. But the game has steadily been getting better. The company has banned Griffin, which was another mistake card. Priscia, again, another mistake card, and Captain Hook. But though Captain Hook is not an oppressive card, it would be too strong in the format without anything to fight it.
All right. Yeah, so come down to Core TCG.
Tournaments are at 12:30 every Sunday.
All right. And this is VMark 2. See you guys next week.